Hello, you may have seen this painting before. What this is a copy of the original painting that I did. Here is the original painting that I did. It's fairly loose, but to some extent it's also a fairly tight painting. But what I want to do is step away from this kind of painting and do some fairly abstract colours, and we'll just concentrate on getting the background atmosphere into the painting rather than going into micro areas like this. We'll probably finish that off on another occasion, but we're going to concentrate on just getting some background colours that will help create a nice atmosphere. So although that one was very well received, we're going to do it in a completely different way. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, because it's going to be quite loose, I'm going to heavily wet the paper and make sure that's reasonably evenly distributed. A bit more. And now it's got a good dousing of water. We're going to go in with some weird abstract colours. Put a bit of red in there as well. You can't see me mixing, unfortunately, because of the way I've got things set up. Right. And that's the kind of feel I'm going to go for. And I'm not worried about going over any of these detailed areas, because we're going to go over them anyway. So and this brush, by the way, is called a hake brush. It's what they use for big brush painting, and it's very nice. I like using them. Let's see if we can get a hint of red up there. The issue with this particular type of painting is you have to stop every so often. And as you can see there, it's pretty much full. Now while that's slightly drying, what I'll do is I'll be blotting some of that out. So you can't really see from the video that I'm doing how very colourful that is, which is a shame. So I'll just emphasise that. Maybe I need to be a bit more stronger in my painting, what I'm showing you guys. There's going to be areas where there'll be darkness there. I'll just so once that's dried, that's your first kind of layer done. As you can see, I've not left an awful lot of white there. It's fairly saturated, so we're going to have to leave it now for a bit to dry. If you can't already see, the painting is at a fair angle, so it's naturally going to dribble down. But what I want to do is see if I can get rid of some of this, so we can put some cloud work in there. And so at this stage I'll leave that and get rid of that bit there. I might even take some of that out. Right. So time to leave it alone now and let it dry for a bit. We've got plenty enough water on it for now, and if you put too much water on it, not only will it buckle, but when you start working it starts becoming broken up and the paper is ruined then. So at this stage I'll leave it to dry. So it's pretty much dry now. It's not absolutely dry, but I'm going to use a smaller hake brush, and I'm going to get a few more areas done, but not absolutely cover every area, I don't think. So let's get following on with the weird theme, because I don't really want this to have naturalistic colours, although I want to hint at the fact that they're natural. Just before I go any farther, I'll re-wet this top area just with water. Down there, might as well. And then let's get. And the trick of this is getting some nice wet fluid colour into it. For the first couple of layers anyway. Now let's one of these buildings, I think I'll make it this one here. I'm going to make it fairly reddish. Really go to town with the red. There you go. And I believe anyway this is red anyway, but and get some orangey stuff in. Maybe that's a little bit too strong. Won't overly concern myself about that. because we're doing fairly weak watery washes, most of this will come out anyway. A bit more. Now we're getting a little bit into the micromanagement of the painting, and what I mean about that is looking at specific areas of the painting that need to be concentrated on. Right, I'll take a little bit of that away, for example. And that actually, that building there would be a good candidate for doing a nice bluey colour like that. Now what we need to do is start thinking about the roofs here, and they're all roughly like a terracotta colour, aren't they? Again, it's like doing an undertone of it, and just letting these paints all interact with one another. I know it looks a bit like a rainbow at the moment, but we'll get there. And it just by slowly but surely bringing in very thin layers of watery paint, we'll get a build up of very interesting washes that all interact with one another. Now that's great for that area, because we want that to be a little bit washed out and in the background, but for foreground stuff we'll put a little bit more detail in that. I don't think I'm going to be doing an awful lot more with this for the time being. I think that's a good place to actually leave it. I might just define a few bits of building bits like that, although I think it's probably just a tiny bit too wet at the moment. But there's nothing wrong with getting some definition in. Like that. And again, remembering that this area is probably going to be quite dark. And at the moment, that's where I want to leave it as a painting. We'll come back to it on another occasion once it's all dry, and we'll start building up the more detailed areas. Now we've got a nice series of washes over there. Now what I want to do is create the definition for all the buildings and all the details by putting tonal value in. For example, here will be dark, although it's light at the moment, and there, and some of this will be dark. You get the point. We're going to get some definition into it now, and then we'll finish off, once that's dry, the tonal value by adding very limited amounts of detailed work, so that this nice build up of blendy wash still shows through. So let's do that, shall we? Now I've gone from using the big brushes like this hake, for example, and we used an even bigger one earlier, and we're going to go and use, it's still a biggish brush, but it's a lot smaller than what we've been using. So what I want to start doing is mixing some colours up that will be conducive with some tonal values. So I'm going to what I want round there is probably some dark purpley blues. So let's see if we can do that. I know you can't actually see this, unfortunately, but it's the way it is with the setup I've got at the moment. And what I want to do is be a lot more drier now with my paint than what I were earlier. So if we come across here, maybe that's a little bit too dry. Now down here, it comes down here as well. And it evaporates eventually. And that will form the basis for the tonal dark value that we've got. And notice what it does do, I don't know if you can actually see it, but because we painted some of this colour into there, there's a little bit of it coming through, which would happen in reality. You get the natural colour of the building plus the shadowing with it as well. So I'm going to do that and do the roof for it, but I'm going to add a tiny little bit of red to that, because although that's in shade, that area, and that would also be in shade, but it's coming from that angle, so it's at a slightly different angle, so there would be more lightness showing through on that. So I'm going to do it ever so slightly lighter. This is where I have to be careful and make sure that I don't. There we go, that's the one. And I don't want to go over into there, and that's going to go like that, and there's going to be a bit of there, and oh, I'm almost micromanaging this. It's not good to do that, really. We shouldn't be overly concerned about getting little areas done like that, but that is what happens occasionally. So this building here, a very similar thing with that. And predictably, but that's a good thing, that, actually, because that's where I was going to put the dark area anyway for that, because that also is a dark area. If we can get a stronger mix in there. Can bring some of that down and the closer you get to it, the more washed out that gets. See if I can get a little bit more colour in there. Just nip a bit of that out. There you go. Now there would be slightly darker than there because there's a little bit of light floods in there, so I am going to emphasise that. And what that helps do is, because this area here is in the light, it helps define that as a light part of the building. And whatever you do in this, you do in this bit of water here. Always striving with these to make sure that you've not got too many hard edges. What I mean by hard edges is lines within the ends of the paint. It should all softly blend into one another. Like this, for example, I'm going to take that out if I can. It's not critical because we're going to put another colour over it anyway. But that's what you do, you soften it out and you get rid of the strong line work. There it's going to be fine because I want a definition, but in other areas it's better not to. So I'm getting progressively drier as I'm painting. And I'm not massively worried about it being strong or very dark in a particular area, because I know that this paint will dry pretty much lighter than what it is now. So you can be bold about getting fairly dark colours in. Don't go overly dark, obviously, but it's the time. This is a bit of a delicate bit. I'll see if I can do it in a bit more. And I'm not striving for absolute detail. I'm just trying to get a tonal value in that'll be pleasing in the end product. I might have to go over that 2 or 3 times to get that right, but we're starting to build up some nice values here. And one thing I haven't done there is put the tower in, so I'm going to roughly say somewhere like that. But again, the tower, you're not going to see, it's quite a bit in the background, the tower, so although it may cast a reflection on the water, to what extent you can see it because of the obscurity of the water, we don't know. So it just seems to be there, as far as I can see. Remember, this is a loose painting. So, next area to get a bit of a dark area in it is round here. Try and get some definition around that. And again, this is not the last coat of paint that's going to go on this. So it's well, I don't know whether to do the gondolas in a very abstract colour way, because they tend to have a particular colour, but let's go for it. We're not absolutely concerning ourselves with realism when it comes to the colours. We want a really nice flowing colour painting. In fact, I mean, most of this painting here, literally, we can do it all sorts of weird abstract colours. I mean, I might even do the guy. As long as you get your values right, it don't matter what colour you do the guy. I mean, at the moment he's green. One thing I've got to get right here. It's not looking good. Ooh. So, following that weird green theme, might be nice to get some yellow in there. And a touch of realism by putting let's get that in there. This one I'm doing a little bit green again. With this one is the so in the background, it's just an essence of let me pull that down like that. While we're doing all these darker tones, there's nothing wrong with getting some segments of detailing in the picture. You know what exists round there. Not explaining every kind of detail that's there. I'm just abstractly expressing some of the things that might be there, and just to give it a slight sense of depth. There's a boat there. I'm not going to super detail with regards to that, but and at this stage, when you're talking about these types of details here, you are really like quite dry brush work now. And you've got windows and various other things like that. And universally, I'm probably going to do this in that kind of feel. Just hint at the idea that you can see some of the reflections of the windows and various other bits. And to be frank, I'm not going to be doing all windows here, because the idea of this is it's pretty much loose and semi-abstract. And I don't think we're that far off completion with regards to the background. We may come back over it if we need to. To remind ourselves of this darker area. The boat in this foreground section, again, I don't want to make too much of it because it's just filling an area up that we now need to move on to possibly do that like that. And you can see how loose this particular type of painting is. It's more to do with introduction of lots of really nice colours. Now, in our foreground work, we might be a bit more formal and a bit more exact, but we'll base out what we can first. Because these buildings do have an awful lot of decoration on them. But whether we want to be that decorative with it is really down to how we feel about the painting. Again, if you look, I'm not being overly accurate. I'm getting rough areas in, and that's how you create loose paintings. I'm not that far off the point where I'm fairly happy with the painting, and it's coming to a conclusion. What I want to emphasise with this is totally wrong brush. It's the fluid nature of it. Things blend into one another. And it's not about high detail. It's about expression. And you don't have to use realistic colours. Wash that side out a bit. I'm going to wash that side out a bit. Get a bit of texture in there. And for me, in a very loose way, that's done. You might tweak bits and you know, once it's dry, you might see an area and go, that needs a bit of work. But apart from that, I think that's roughly where I want to keep it. Although I have got one more thing I've got to do that I forgot to put in, and that's them bobbly things. I don't know what they call them. Still don't know what they call them. But I'm only going to very abstractly do it. And that's it. That really is as much as I'm going to do like that. There you go. And you even get a bonus bit that's dribbling into that, although I don't think I want that. Okay. Right, that's that done. Thank you for coming and having a look at this. And what I will finally do is put that up against the painting that I did before, and you can see the differences. Obviously this one I took an awful lot longer with, but I actually did it in a much less loose style. This is more to do with the colour of the image, whereas this one is more leaning towards realism. So it just shows that you can approach paintings and watercolours confidently in all sorts of different ways. So keep looking and having a go at paintings, and even if you do like exactly the same painting several times, have a go at doing those paintings several times. So thank you. If you will subscribe, if you're not already subscribed, and please leave a like. So we'll see you again another time. Thank you, bye.